Hello, fellow Star citizens. It's Taras here again. It looks like CIG pulled a bit of a surprise on us on Friday or Saturday for some of you, depending on where you come from, when they released 3.21 into the PTU. Aside from the new features and missions that were listed in the changelog for PTU 3.21, CIG had also introduced the Pyro jump point. This took many of us by surprise. I think the last time some of us saw the Pyro jump point was back in 3.18, and apparently this time round the jump point is a lot more fleshed out than it was before. I know I'm somewhat late in the game, as many backers have really gone into social media to release their posts and even videos on their experience with the Pyro jump point. But still, I thought I should do a little bit of a quick video to show people how to get there and kind of what to expect for those who are unwilling to do an entirely new PTU installation on their computers. Getting to the jump point can be a little bit tricky for some of us, but if you are able to find places like the Benny Hill vending machines on the asteroids of Yala or Grimhex, then I'm sure finding this jump point would be just as easy or difficult. I think when news of the jump point broke, there was actually a lot of posts on Spectrum on how people managed to find the jump point. Naturally, some of these methods were easier than others, and I think the one that I have used most consistently was the one posted by Karolinger, which I will link his video below, where basically he advises us to start from Mark L3 and with UpCorp as your target point, go into Quantum, and when you reach the orbit line, basically that blue circle that's in between Mike L3 and UpCorp, basically the orbital path of the planet of UpCorp, which I'm zooming in right now. When your quantum path intersects with this orbit path, quickly drop off Quantum, which I'm doing now. Do factor in some time for lag because this is a PTU.
Quantum drive deactivated.
Next, you should target up L2 and start quantuming away, and roughly 17 million kilometers after, drop off the quantum and you should find the jump point nebula. Using Karolinger's advice, I've actually found the nebula twice before this particular instance. The only problem is after you find the nebula visually, it's still a very long ride on maximum speed to get to the jump point station. So in this particular case, the server that I was on, which essentially was a European server, was very active, and in between the time as I was traveling from my L3 to ICOP, somebody actually got to the jump point station and put up a quantum beacon. So huge thanks to the person. Unfortunately, I did not catch who it was as I was away from chat when it happened, but you certainly saved us at least about 15 to 20 minutes of traveling time at full speed. Here, I think it is useful to bring a ship that has a fairly high maximum speed. The Carrack actually is a good choice because I think it can reach over 1,100 meters per second. But you also have to bear in mind that a ship with a medical bay would also be very useful, and a large fuel tank. A med bay is useful because this is the PTU, and it's essentially the first version of the 3.21 PTU that's released to the non-Avocati backer crowd, and this is not a very stable version of the game. So it's useful to have a med bay where you can actually save your spawn point in case you get dropped out of the server, and you can actually sign back in and reappear on your ship as it is. Of course, this is not going to work if you suffer a 30k, because your ship will simply be wiped off the universe anyway. Although I must say, there was one instance where I had a 30k and I actually could respawn back into my ship right inside the medical bay. So I think there's some form of persistence, and I think in some cases the persistence actually works. So if you have a med bay on your ship, save your spawn point there. You've got nothing to lose anyway. So Carrack owners, A90 jump owners, rejoice. Anyway, here am I setting my spawn point to my A90 jump, and then I'll be heading in to the Pyro jump station. But once again, if you're lucky and someone in your server has actually gotten to the jump point station and put a quantum marker there, quantum beacon there, just click on it and hit there. So for those of you who followed the advice of other YouTubers and found it from scratch, one of the first things you see as you approach the jump point station is a huge blue nebula which flashed by just now because we essentially arrived at quantum speeds. But here we are dropping out of quantum, and here's the Pyro jump station. It is actually a huge station and includes not only the usual station facilities but also a refinery and a cargo center. It makes sense though, as this is like some kind of hub before you jump on to another system entirely. So yep, here you go. This is a tour of the jump station. The jump station consists of a central hub, something familiar to most of us, as most stations actually have such a similar structure, followed by a very long extended structure that I think houses the refineries, because if you were to take a lift or inside the station, you find that you end up at about 6 kilometers away from the central hub. So the long spire, together with the capital class docking slots that you see on the right of the screen now, actually consists and form part of the Pyro jump station itself, the main structures of it. There appears to be a couple of standard size or large size hangars around the circular ring, and if you go past those rings, you will actually see that it's got landing pads, just like you have in some of the stations in game, the LEOs especially. The reason why we need the landing pads is because docking functionality is still not available, at least in the PTU. So here I am, heading towards the central spire and aligning myself with one of the larger landing pads that I can see. And you've got to do a variation of what I did. Either you try to land partially on a pad or park yourself beside the pad and EVA back out. That has some risk because you can't quite predict when the gravity will catch, and some of you would actually get injured as you basically fall onto the pad after leaving a ship. So there are pros and cons to each approach. I decided to just land on the pad and hop right out. Here we are inside the Pyro jump point station. There are actually NPCs inside the station already.
To the ASOP vehicle
And
retrieval
the
system.
ASOP terminals, while they appear to be working, if you were to call your ship, it actually appears in your home planet. So if I were to say I summon my Avenger Titan here, it would actually appear in Area 18. So basically it's useless. And you can't store ships that you fly to the Pyro jump station anyway, because in the first place you couldn't dock with them. The hangars, the ATCs are basically not working. The only way in is in a landing pad, which means that you have to claim your ship if you were to use the ASOP terminals to get your ship. So the structure of the station seems quite similar to the other stations, the rest of the RR stations. There are food stalls, so you can actually replenish your food and water, so no worries there. And you can actually buy items as you would in any other station and use them, like in this case. Next, I tried to check if I could change my spawn point to the station. Unfortunately, the terminals just won't assign you a room. So because of that, you are not able to set your spawn point to the Pyro jump point right now. And of course, medical services, if you get injured, also not available. So here we are at the cargo station. The cargo center looks similar to those that we have seen at the low orbit stations like Port Tressler, Balgenie Point, Everest Harbour, and the new Seraphim station. So seems to be largely the same. And even the items for sale are similar, including the ubiquitous Ariel yellow armor, which is one of my personal favorites. Here you can also buy things like tractor beams and tractor beam attachment. Next, we'll check out the Platinum Bay. I think Platinum Bays in stations are very important, especially for those leading to other systems. Unfortunately, the items that are being sold don't seem to be anything special. In fact, I think there are some stations like Port Tressler, which sells the XL1 engines, and Cousin Crows over in Orison, actually have a much more useful array of items for sale. But still, I note that the station currently right now sells a lot of the upper tier category A industrial and civilian shields, which might be useful. But in terms of power plants, you do have the JS 300s and 400s, which is quite good, but nothing really special. And unfortunately for quantum drives, it carries the stealth drives, but not the other more useful ones like the XR1s and the TS3s, or even the civilian Alice's. The rest of the station is largely would be familiar to us. A lot of the eating stalls and other services are present, including the admin center. So speeding things up a little bit here as I explore the various wings of the station. Of course, there is a weapon store, and it seems quite similar. I mean, you have the P4 ARs, some of the more common guns, which can be useful. And right next to it is also a store selling armor. Unfortunately, it appears that they haven't gotten this store stocked. So there's nothing really for sale, but it's good to know that the Pyro jump station would have an armor store. Alright, for the more observant of you, you realize that I'm now flying a Carrick instead of an anti-jump. Reason is because I had a 30k. And I thought that I show you the jump gate itself. So if you leave the Pyro jump station and you head along the length of that long spire that forms the refinery part of the jump station, you arrive at like a sort of a gantry area with advertisements on top of each gantry. This is similar to the old takeoff and landing air paths that we used to have in version 3 up to maybe 3.15 of Star Citizen as you leave the station. You will also note that the graphics here is actually quite janky. I think there are some textures like gases or clouds that simply are opaque to us right now. Ooh, that was a ship. Zoom by. So anyway, if you go through the gantries, you will start receiving notices that you are entering into Pyro. A couple of signs that are also quite interesting for travelers, like the fact that you will no longer get fuel. Star Fury pilots here, this is your chance to be useful. So because there are actually quite a lot of blind spots, like, you know, every time you pass through, say, a texture that's supposed to be clouds or rocks, it's actually pitch black. I was sticking to SCM speeds just in case that someone comes through that particular area at high speeds. You can see a starlifter just passing by me on my right. So interestingly, if you head the other way through these very same gantries, you receive notices relevant to travelers coming from Pyro into Stanton. It's quite an interesting concept. And of course, all the major brands in Star Citizen, like Crusader Industries, Arcorp, all run advertisements. I just wonder how much it costs to run such an advertisement. Even Fletcher has an advertisement. Imagine advertising Pletcher's services to people coming from Pyro. That's a thought. Anyway, so here's the jump gate. And you can see the jump station itself in the distance. So this sort of gives you an orientation of where the jump gate is in relation to the station itself. So guys, I leave you with a bit of a clip that I thought I should preserve. In one of my earlier videos at the jump station, I had met a French-speaking player called Faye. I hope I do not mangle your name too much. Flying an M2. So I first met him when he was flying along the same flight path, and he kind of overtook me from ahead. I decided to chat with him because obviously he was trying to demonstrate his flying skills by doing a near distance overtake, and he started to follow me around. Of course, me being in my A90 jump means that I'm not going to do any kind of serious acrobatics. So we did a gentle sort of fly through the whole Pyro jump station area. Well, the fact that these assets actually exist in the game right now means that Pyro isn't really that far away. I hope we'll see or learn a little bit more about CIG's intentions during the upcoming CitizenCon. I was supposed to head over to Los Angeles for the CitizenCon, but there was a change of plans, partly or rather mostly related to work, but also because of my punishing travel schedule in the next few months. I decided not to travel that far away from Singapore, where I'm from, all the way to Los Angeles in the United States. For those of you who are not aware, that would be a 23-hour flight. Well, 26 if you include the time for transfers. So it's really quite a bit of commitment. I don't think there was any contact there, but good flying. Anyway, these are exciting times. I think 3.20 did launch a couple of good features, and I'm certainly looking forward to what 3.21 brings, because everything that CIG does is one step closer to 4.0 and hopefully better. I mean, we're talking about years here, but hey, you know, I've been in Star Citizen since 2014, so what's a couple more years? And yeah, the way I'm going, I think my kids would be able to inherit some of my ships. Anyway, this is Starus. I'm signing out here. Enjoy the rest of the video. I'll see you around.